Before the Madden Curse became a running joke, or a serious fear depending on who you ask, there was Garrison Hearst, the man who started it all. Hearst battled early career knee issues, but had a rebound season in 1997 with the 49ers, then exploded in 1998, rushing for 1,570 yards and earning his first Pro Bowl selection. He was the perfect back for the late 90s Niners, and in the NFC wildcard game, he helped San Fran pull off one of the greatest playoff finishes ever, a last-second TD pass from Steve Young to T.O. And right before the 1998 NFL season, EA Sports featured Hearst on the international version of Madden 99. John Madden himself was still gracing the main cover, but it was the first time a player graced any Madden cover at all, and thus the curse was born. In the very next playoff game against the Falcons, Hearst suffered a gruesome leg and ankle injury, but it wasn't just your standard broken leg. The injury led to a condition called avascular necrosis, where the bone starts to die due to lack of blood flow. He missed 2 full seasons, and doctors said he may never play again. To his credit, Hearst made an unbelievable comeback. In 2001, after 3 surgeries and years of rehab, he returned to rush for over 1,200 yards and win Comeback Player of the Year. But the injury robbed him of 2 prime years. People forget how good Hearst was. He had speed, vision, and was just starting to become a household name. But that playoff injury, right after being the first ever player on a Madden cover, kicked off what would become a now 25-plus year superstition. The curse claimed Hearst first. Shaun Alexander, Madden 07. In 2005, Shaun Alexander had one of the greatest seasons of all time. He racked up 1,880 rushing yards, 28 total touchdowns, which was a new NFL record at the time, and carried the Seattle Seahawks all the way to the Super Bowl. Not only was he the league's MVP that year, he was the heart and soul of a franchise that made the leap. So when Alexander was announced as the Madden 07 cover athlete, it felt like the perfect reward. He wasn't flashy, but just a dominant back at his peak. What could go wrong? Well, in 2006, Alexander broke his foot and missed 6 games. And while he did come back late in the season and put up a few final legendary games, he was still playing injured. So for a guy who had a groundbreaking season the year before, it was a massive step down. That season was the beginning of the end. Alexander never returned to Pro Bowl form. Injuries piled up, production dropped, and following the 2007 season, Seattle opted to cut him. And maybe the most cursed thing of all, Alexander signed an 8-year, $62 million contract before the 06 season started. It was the biggest deal for a running back in NFL history at the time, and it aged like milk. Marshall Faulk, Madden 03. When Marshall Faulk landed on the cover of Madden 03, he was a living cheat code. In fact, you can forget Madden. Real-life Marshall Faulk was a video game character himself. From 1999 to 2001, Faulk pulled off a three-peat of the Offensive Player of the Year award. He totaled nearly 7,000 yards from scrimmage and 59 touchdowns in that stretch, all while playing in 2 Super Bowls and helping the greatest show on turf become one of the most explosive offenses ever assembled. He was fast, smooth, and could take a basic screen pass and make it look like poetry in motion. There wasn't a more complete back in football. Maybe ever. His Madden cover was overdue, if anything. But in the 02 season, Faulk battled through a high ankle sprain. He missed 2 games and failed to crack 1,000 rushing yards for the first time since becoming a full-time starter. The Rams, fresh off 2 Super Bowl appearances in the previous 3 years, finished a disappointing 7-9. Now, to be fair, Faulk still made the Pro Bowl that year, which kind of tells you how insane his standard was. But this was the moment the drop-off really began. The burst wasn't the same, and he was in clear physical decline. Faulk never again rushed for 1,000 yards, and his role steadily diminished until he retired a few years later, also following major chronic knee problems. Vince Young, Madden 08. Vince Young was one of the most famous football players in America before he ever even took an NFL snap. After his legendary performance in the 06 Rose Bowl, where he outdueled USC and carried Texas to a national title, the Titans took him 3rd overall, and he immediately brought energy to a dead offense. In his rookie year, he led multiple comebacks, made the Pro Bowl, and was named Offensive Rookie of the Year. The guy just had that it factor. He wasn't refined, but he made things happen. So when EA slapped him on the cover of Madden 08 after just 1 season, it was clear they were buying into the hype. And by the way, that cover, one of the cleanest in Madden history. But that's where the shine stops. The 07 season, the infamous curse year, was rough. Young threw 17 interceptions to just 9 touchdowns, and his already criticized mechanics looked like they'd taken a step back. He was benched for a game after violating team rules, and rumors about his attitude started to swirl. The Titans still made the playoffs, but it was behind their defense and run game, not because of Vince Young. And behind the scenes, things were really going downhill. Character issues, clashes with coaches, and questions about his work ethic caused the Golden Boy image to really fade. And what took its place was the narrative of a quarterback that just couldn't seem to progress toward NFL greatness. And unfortunately, this was not a temporary slump. Young lost his job in 2008 to Kerry Collins, then had a brief resurgence in 2009, but lost the starting job again in 2010. After that, he was out of Tennessee, and after one season in Philly, he ultimately had played his final NFL regular season game at the age of just 28. Rob Gronkowski, Madden 17. At his peak, Rob Gronkowski was one of the biggest matchup nightmares of all time. Probably the most dominant all-around tight end in NFL history. A human tank, an unstoppable red zone weapon, but the kind of party boy charm that made him weirdly likable even if he was cooking your favorite team. Heading into Madden 17, Gronk had just strung together back-to-back first-team All-Pro seasons. He was finally looking healthy again after missing major time due to injury in 2012 and 2013. But following the Madden release, he missed the first 2 games of the 2016 season with a pulled hamstring. After that, a hit by Earl Thomas knocked him out for a game. Then came the big one, a herniated disc in his back that shut him down for the rest of the year. In total, Gronk played just 8 games in 2016 and caught a career-low 25 passes. But oddly enough, while Gronk's season was a mess, the Patriots were just fine. They still won the Super Bowl with that 28-3 comeback, so even without their greatest weapon, they found a way. Nonetheless, the curse was real, and that back injury was a turning point. Gronk came back in 2017 and dominated one final time, but his body was clearly on a countdown. In 2018, he really fell off. 2019, retired. 2020, he came back to play with Brady in Tampa for 2 more seasons, winning another Super Bowl before leaving football again. But his prime ended far earlier than it should have. Brett Favre, Madden 09. The Madden Curse has taken out legends, but Brett Favre might have had the greatest bounce back. When EA Sports chose Favre for their 09 cover, it was supposed to basically be a farewell tribute, one final honor for the ultimate gunslinger who had just wrapped up his 16th and supposedly final season in Green Bay. Favre had just led the Packers to a 13-3 record, thrown for over 4,000 yards, and finished second in MVP voting at age 38. A fantastic note to end on. So EA put him on the cover in a Packers jersey and pressed print. But then everything went off the rails. Favre unretired that summer, and after a complicated dispute, the Packers basically said, "Nah, we're good, we have Aaron Rodgers," and traded him to New York where he became Brett the Jet. So there he was on shelves across the country in a green and gold Packers uniform, while about to suit up in green and white, causing EA to scramble and release the Jets version of the cover. As for his season with the Jets, it started fine, but he tore his bicep tendon in his right shoulder in the 11th game. Then, in true Favre fashion, pushed through it and kept chucking the ball anyway, ultimately finishing the season with 22 interceptions, the most in the league, and the Jets missed the playoffs after collapsing down the stretch. To add to the ridiculousness, Favre retired and then unretired again before having one of the best years of his career with the Vikings in 2009, but that cover season in New York was a catastrophe. Christian McCaffrey, Madden 2025. What a duo Christian McCaffrey and Kyle Shanahan have been. In 2023, McCaffrey led the NFL with 1,459 rushing yards and tacked on 21 total touchdowns like it was nothing. He did it all, per usual, and most importantly, he stayed healthy. The 49ers made the Super Bowl, McCaffrey made first-team All-Pro, inked a 2-year, $38 million extension, and then EA dropped that clean-ass cover. But in 2024, the injury bug hit hard once again. McCaffrey took until Week 10 to debut after an Achilles injury, and played in just 4 games before going down with a knee injury. It was a familiar pain that we've grown accustomed to with CMC. But the good news is the story's not over. Heading into 2025, McCaffrey is reportedly fully healthy. The Niners are still in win now mode, and Shanahan's system hasn't gone anywhere. So if CMC can return to form, stay on the field, and give us just one more full season of brilliance, the curse might get squashed. Because while 2024 may have been cursed, it's still just one chapter. McCaffrey has a chance to remind everyone why he was on that cover in the first place and prove that he's still the best in the game. Donovan McNabb, Madden 06. For years, Donovan McNabb had been labeled a good but not great quarterback. Could he really win big games? Well, in 2004, he answered every question. He threw for over 3,800 yards, set a career high in touchdowns, made his 5th straight Pro Bowl, and most importantly, led the Philadelphia Eagles to the Super Bowl after 3 straight NFC Championship losses. Alongside T.O., he gave the city its most complete football team in years. So when McNabb landed on the Madden 06 cover, he had earned it. But the 05 season was a slow-motion car crash. McNabb began the season nursing a sports hernia, and he actually played quite well with it, and Philly was still winning games during the first month. But in Week 10 against the Cowboys, he suffered a groin injury which would prove to be the finishing blow. He missed the final 7 games and watched the Eagles stumble to a 6-10 finish just 1 year after reaching the Super Bowl. But the injury was only half the story. The other half was the toxic feud with Terrell Owens, which had been simmering since the Super Bowl loss. Owens took issue with McNabb's toughness, leadership, and his conditioning. But it wasn't just the Eagles' offense that fell apart. It was also McNabb's image. He went from superstar to being embarrassed by T.O.'s comments. McNabb would bounce back in 2006 and go on to have a few more solid seasons, but he never made it back to a Super Bowl or fully repaired his reputation. And that 2005 season, immediately after his cover, was the turning point. Daunte Culpepper, Madden 02. Minnesota had drafted Daunte Culpepper in the first round in 1999. But he didn't attempt a single pass in his rookie season, so nobody really knew what to expect when he took over as the starter in year 2. What followed, though, was a highlight reel of deep bombs, bulldozing scrambles, and touchdown celebrations with Randy Moss. Culpepper threw 33 touchdowns, racked up nearly 4,000 yards, ran for almost 500 more, and led the Vikings to the NFC Championship game. He looked like a new kind of quarterback. Big Ben before Big Ben. Josh Allen before Josh Allen. Huge frame, strong, mobile, and with a cannon for an arm. So when EA Sports selected him for the Madden 02 cover, it was a recognition of the league's next superstar. Culpepper was young, marketable, and coming off one of the best dual-threat QB seasons the league had ever seen. But the very next season, Culpepper crashed back to earth. Through 11 games, he threw just 14 touchdowns against 13 interceptions. The Vikings, who had been 1 win from the Super Bowl the year before, started 4-7. And just when it couldn't get any worse, Culpepper suffered a season-ending knee injury in Week 12. Culpepper went from the future of the NFL to what the hell just happened in less than 12 months. And in 2002, the struggles continued, going 6-10 with 23 interceptions. To be fair, 2000 would actually not end up being his peak. His 2004 season was MVP caliber, but that 01 campaign, his Madden year, was an undeniable faceplant. Peyton Hillis, Madden 12. In 2010, Peyton Hillis trucked his way into NFL folklore. A fullback turned running back, playing for the Cleveland Browns, suddenly looked like the second coming of Larry Zonka. He rushed for 1,177 yards, scored 13 total touchdowns, and absolutely punished defenders with his physicality. He was the opposite of fast, and he wasn't a superstar, but he just relied on pure violence. And the Madden cover following that season was determined by fan vote. In a wild twist of internet democracy, Hillis beat out Aaron Rodgers, Michael Vick, and Ray Rice to land the cover of Madden 12. Supposedly. There's a conspiracy theory that Michael Vick actually won the vote, but EA decided it would be a bad idea to have him grace the cover so soon after prison. Regardless, Hillis was a working-class hero and the people's champion. But the 2011 season saw him perform more like he was always expected to. It began with contract drama. Hillis wanted a long-term extension, but the Browns weren't budging. Then came a string of bizarre injuries, hamstring issues, a mysterious strep throat situation that sidelined him for a game, way lower rushing efficiency. He played in only 10 games, didn't even crack 600 rushing yards, and as quickly as he'd risen, he had plummeted back down to earth. And what made it worse was the off-field noise. There were whispers that Hillis was using those little injuries to skip games and protect his contract future. Teammates began to side-eye him, media questions followed, and the cult hero turned cover athlete was wearing out his welcome in Cleveland. So that long-term extension never came. Hillis bounced around the league for a few more years, but never again topped even 400 rushing yards in a season. He retired in 2015 after his age 28 season. Michael Vick, Madden 04. If you know, you know. Madden 04 Michael Vick is considered to be the most unstoppable sports video game character ever. 95 speed, 95 agility, left-handed, you could roll out, launch a 60-yard bomb, or take off and easily outrun the defense. In 2002, in just his second season, Vick led the Falcons to a blowout playoff win over Brett Favre at Lambeau. He ran for 777 yards, threw for nearly 3,000, and had defensive coordinators trying to game plan for something they'd frankly never even seen before. He finished 4th in MVP voting and was seen as the future. So with his place on the Madden 04 cover, football was officially entering the Michael Vick era. But the curse struck instantly. Literally the day after Madden 04 was released, Vick broke his leg in a preseason game, sidelining the most exciting player in football for most of the year, and really making fans curious about the Madden Curse. Not only did it tank the Falcons' season, it was a big blow to the NFL product as a whole. Everyone wanted to see what Vick would do next. He returned in Week 13, but Atlanta finished 5-11, and his once-in-a-generation vibe took its first major hit. And even when he bounced back in 04, 05, and beyond, he never quite became the all-time great people hoped for. The legs were of course there, but the passing polish lagged behind. And just a few years later, his career would come crashing down for entirely different reasons, before he ultimately would make his comeback in Philly and finally show some of that passing polish everyone had dreamt of. Antonio Brown, Madden 19. You could say that Antonio Brown was the best receiver in football for over a half-decade during the 2010s. From 2013 to 18, he logged 6 straight seasons with over 100 catches and 1,200 yards. Highlight after highlight, toe taps, deep balls, he led the league in receptions and yards multiple times. In 2018 alone, he caught 15 touchdowns. This was peak AB, and his spot on the cover of Madden 19 was more than deserved. No one had been more productive, but nobody could have predicted what happened next, except maybe Mike Tomlin, because Antonio Brown's curse was not physical at all. It was a complete mental breakdown. It started with friction in Pittsburgh, various issues in the locker room, disputes with Ben Roethlisberger. The Steelers were just over it and AB wanted out, so they sent him to Oakland. Then came the Raiders saga, with frostbitten feet, a helmet grievance, fines, and Instagram rants. He never played a single snap for the team before being released. Days later, the Patriots gave him a shot, where he played 1 game, scored 1 touchdown, and then 1 lawsuit. He was released within the week. From that point on, aside from his Super Bowl run with Tom Brady, his career was mostly a sideshow, and a comeback that ended with a shirtless mid-game exit off the field in New York. The season of his Madden cover was fine, but in the years that followed, Antonio Brown played in just 16 more games. A single season's worth of football for a player who, at the time, was the best wideout in the NFL and on a no-doubt Hall of Fame trajectory. And it's not like he suffered a major injury or some rapid physical decline. He just imploded. The Madden Curse broke his brain. No one fell further, faster than Antonio Brown, and that makes him the worst Madden Curse of all time. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this, check out my video exposing every next face of the NFL.